herringbone tile pattern. So we have Andy here with us today. Andy is actually a certified tile installer. There's his card. There's fewer than 2,000 certified tile installers in the entire country. So whenever you want to install a backsplash or maybe a tile shower, you want to make sure it's done properly. I know a lot of people go on YouTube, like here, they try to learn how to do things themselves, but it is really important to know all the tips and tricks, which is why we have Andy here today. He's going to be able to explain the entire process as well as the different materials that you will be using in your project. Let's get started. First thing you have to do to prepare for your backsplash is remove all the outlet covers. You just remove the screws, come right off.
That's how it's all going to start out.
And then you build from there.
Yep. And then pretty much this is going to get flipped right there. The laser, don't look at it. Well, don't look there. You can look at the wall. This is how we're going to see how level your countertop actually is. Alright, we're an 1/8 inch out already. Quarter inch out.
So what do you do if you don't have a laser level? You just use a regular level?
Yeah, you would just make a level line coming all the way across and you know, just read off of that. Or you could just, you know, take a level, put it on the countertop, and, you know, from there figure out your height difference.
Yes.
The X is what you cut off.
Fair enough.
A small X indicates, let's try and use it again. A larger X is potentially no brainer.
Small X. Big X?
Yes.
So small.
So when would you use this one versus the wet saw?
Wet saws are better for, you know, glass, but we need like a certain blade for glass. Wet saws are much better for natural stones, like ceramics and porcelains. Some porcelains could be a little too dense, which wet saws would be easier to cut it, but it's a lengthy process. With a tile cutter like this and a typical ceramic tile, you just line your line up, score it. Sometimes you gotta move your scoring tool. Snap it. Stone, rubbing stone. So there's that there. What's that?
That's the rat tile.
In a sense, yeah. What you really want to do is you want to get the burrs of the edge of the tile off, because if you don't stone that off and somebody in the future ever goes to rub their hand on it, you could actually end up slicing your hand wide open. So you want to try and get the burr off the edge of the tile so that you don't end up slicing your hand. It is an adhesive for tile. It's an organic adhesive.
Does it come in the bucket or did you have to mix it?
No, it comes pre-mixed in the bucket, usually. Sometimes you may get a bad batch and it might be too stiff or a little, liquidy on the top. Sometimes you may have to just whip it back up, but usually it's pre-mixed just like that. It sticks on a trowel pretty well. And then you can get it on the wall. Usually what you're supposed to do is key in prior to. This way you get at least a bond on the wall. And then get some more and finally trap it. And you're off to the races.
How thick of a layer should you do?
You don't want it like way too thick, but you definitely don't want to like skim coat it either. Like you don't want it like that where there's really no ridges. You want to try and hold your trowel at a decent angle, and you see that? Those little ripples. It means that that's not even with the rest of it. So that's obviously an area that you want to get your glue back in. Fun times. You also want to make sure you get as much of the area covered as possible, because you want proper adhesion. You don't want any areas where air pockets could be, because then your tile really won't stick very well. Also, when you're troweling, you want to make sure everything goes in one direction. The main reason for that is when you stick the tile to your mortar bed, which that's what this would be, you want to be able to flex it over, that 1/4 of an inch and then back in order to completely embed it and get all the air pockets out from in between these trowel marks. So that's also another reason why you don't want to have it like way too close on the wall, because then you'll be building tiles out, and that's not really what you want to do.
How quickly does this dry, the mastic?
Fairly quickly.
So you would not recommend putting it all over the
Nope.
entire kitchen?
Nope. Now, about where I'm at right now is where it's going to be until I get a little closer, and then I'll end up troweling a little more. This way I have enough work time with what's up there at the moment. Usually with your first row, you want to try and give about 1/8 of an inch gap for expansion and contraction, and that's also where the silicone is going to end up, so that's why you want to have at least 1/8 of an inch.
On the bottom, you mean?
Yes. So what we're going to do is what's known as kerf cuts. We'll see what they are in a second.
What is that called, that tool?
These are called tile nippers. They nip whatever little pieces you have. Usually they don't want to fit in there right now, so I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to show you another weird technique. Cut off these pieces, we're going to just bring around onto this wall in order to then continue the pattern exactly how it's supposed to go.
Okay.
So that'll look like that, and then you'll have another piece here with a small clip on this corner. So, and then, yep, it'll just look like I bent the tile right around that corner.
But you cut a little bit off, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a little bit. You still want to make sure that you're going to line up you know, point to point. Like these 2 points would still have to meet up with these 2 points.
Okay.
So that, you know, you get a nice finish that looks like the tile just bent around the corner. And yeah, there's a little bit of gap in that corner.
So this mastic, you were saying you should only use this in a backsplash. You would never use this in a wet area?
It can be used in like certain other dry areas, like on small floors and things of that nature, but it's not something you would want to put in a wet area because it can promote mold growth with it being an organic adhesive. A lot of times people, you know, would call it pre-mixed thin set, but really it's an organic adhesive.
So for the floor, you would use thin set. For a backsplash, you would use mastic. What would you use inside a shower?
Thin set as well, and waterproofing membranes. But it does, certain tiles you would have to use like a thin set. Like if you're putting like a glass mosaic or anything up on your backsplash, there are certain like adhesive, well, certain cements, thin sets that are used for glass. The main reason why you have a separate one for glass is the pigment of it does not change color. It remains perfectly white behind the tile. And with glass, all you have is just a piece of glass with like a painted piece of paper on the back of it, and that's what gives you your colored finish. So with the white thin set being behind that, you'll never deviate from that color. If you use like a mastic behind glasses, mastic tends to yellow over time, which then could cause the pigment of your glass tile to change.
Makes sense.
So that's why only in certain, conditions, definitely in dry areas like a backsplash, you can use mastic and things of that nature, but certain tiles you would just have to look at what's recommended for it.
What if you're putting tile on a dry wall in a bathroom? Would you be able to use mastic, or does it still need to be thin set?
If
it's a dry area.
If it's a dry area, it can be mastic, yes, but only up to a 12 by 12 tile. Most, buckets will, list like what tiles they would be recommended for, how big your notch trowel to use would be. You really don't want to use too much of this stuff because it does take a while to cure. And if you're putting it, say, like on a dry floor area, there's that risk where you could step on it the next day and everything could still move.
Got it. So now we let our tile set overnight. What we're going to do is we are going to prepare the grout. So you want to have a bucket of water ready to go. And now we're going to be mixing our grout. So every mix is going to be different, so you can feel free to read the directions on the back. In our case, what we're going to do, we're going to dump some of this mix into a bucket, and then we want it to still be a thick consistency. So we'll add a little bit of water. We don't want it too watery, because the more watery it is, the higher chance of it shrinking, and then you'll end up having gaps and you'll have to re-grout. So let's do it. So that's how much we have in there. Right now we're going to do just a little bit at a time. We're going to get the sponge wet. Now we're going to just let some of this water drip in there. All right, so we're going to start. We did not want to add too much water to start out with because, like I said, we want this to be nice and thick. So we're going to mix it. Got a little bit of water. So because Andy is a pro, he obviously wouldn't have to deal with this. So what we are going to show you is if you are not a tile installer and you install your own tile and you find that some of the mastic actually came on top of the tile, what you want to do is you want to use a utility knife and scrape some of that off, just so that whenever you go to put your grout it's not visible. So we're actually going to show you the rest on this tile, just because any homeowner is not going to be certified like Andy, and you're more likely to make the same mistakes that we will. So we'll show you how to work through those. All right, so now we are ready to grout. So we have our grout that we mixed right in this bucket. We have a grout float. What we're going to do, we're going to grab a little bit, and we're going to push it in to the grout spacing. So we're going to go in every single direction. We want to make sure that everything is completely filled. We'll do a little section here first. See how we're getting those gaps? So we want to keep pushing it in. It's not enough to just go over the tile. You go in every single direction. Let's get a little bit more. And we did protect the floor so that this grout isn't staining it. And you're just going to keep repeating this. If you have any bubbles in there, you want to fill that in as well. All right, so let me show you. These lines, they look like they're all filled in. So now we're going to take the excess off. So you'll clean that float. And now I'm going to do X's in opposite directions. And the reason I do that is so that if I were to go in the same direction as the grout, my corners don't hit those lines and actually pull the grout off. So I want to go in a different direction. And keep cleaning it off. So now what we do, we have to get a clean sponge. We rinse it and we squeeze all that water out because we don't want to add any more water to that grout, otherwise it's going to thin it out. So we have our clean sponge, there's no more water dripping out of it. And then what we do is we get that haze off of the tile. And we're going to turn the sponge around so that you're not getting that dirty haze onto the other tiles. And you can do that with all the corners. And then we rinse it again. Again. So this is the basic process that you're going to do until you have your entire backsplash completely covered with the grout. So that's what I'm going to do. And then after that, we will teach you how to silicone. So when you are done wiping the haze off of your tiles will look something like this. What we did here is we've actually finished it off with some silicone. You want to make sure it is a color match silicone. So right here we had a frost colored grout. So we have the same silicone to match, which is pretty self-explanatory, but you do that against your countertop. And there you go. That is our backsplash.